In the late 13th century, the medieval state of Rus, the loose federation of principalities that preceded modern Russia, was fracturing. The death of its most unifying leader left the kingdom divided and leaderless. This is Alexander Nevsky, a ruler who became a saint. His legacy was an impossible standard for his sons, turning their inheritance into a source of bitter, lifelong competition. The eldest brother Dmitri held the title of Grand Prince with a natural, cultured grace. His younger brother Andrei lacked this princely polish, leaving him with a deep sense of inadequacy that bordered on obsession. Andrei's desperate need for status blinded him to the risks of his political maneuvering. His insecurity created a vulnerability that external powers were ready to exploit. This vast, empty horizon is the steppe. A high-ranking aristocrat or boyar named Semyon used this landscape to illustrate a point, that the power rising from the east was an unstoppable natural force. Semyon suggested that Andrei could bypass the need for a larger Russian army. Instead of outfighting his brother, he could simply redirect the momentum of the Golden Horde. The Golden Horde was the western sector of the Mongol Empire, serving as the primary military superpower of the region. Andrei traveled to the Khan's capital, where the absolute scale of the Mongol silk tents and the silence of their court overwhelmed him. In the face of such absolute authority, his psychological submission was total. Fraternal jealousy finally overrode his duty to his people. Andrei made the decision to formally invite this foreign empire to invade his own territory and remove his brother from power. The plan worked with terrifying efficiency. A massive Tatar host flooded into Rus alongside Andrei, overwhelming local defenses before Dmitri could respond. This map shows the strategic collapse. The invasion severed Dmitri's escape routes, stripping him of territory and treasury in a matter of weeks. With resources gone and allies scattered, Dmitri was forced into total isolation, a fugitive in his own kingdom. Dmitri fled to this fortress in the north, seeking safety behind stone walls, but leaving the heart of the country entirely unprotected. Purely as a military operation, Andrei's move was a total success. He had effectively neutralized his rival and cleared a path to the throne. But as the strategic map was redrawn, the actual land was burned. Major cities like Moscow and Dmitrov were looted and reduced to charcoal. This collapse of order triggered a phenomenon known as svoi svoik, our own against our own. Andrei's Russian soldiers used the Mongol presence as a shield, pillaging their fellow countrymen. Thousands of refugees fled into the winter forests. Without leadership or supplies, families were abandoned to the sub-zero temperatures. One chronicle records the discovery of a peasant family frozen in a ravine. Their horses had stayed by their side, refusing to leave the bodies, until they eventually starved to death while trying to eat the bark off the nearby trees. The physical destruction of the country was matched by a moral decay. Andrei had achieved his goal by cannibalizing the very state he intended to rule. This is the Cathedral of Novgorod. Andrei arrived here to be officially crowned as Grand Prince, entering a city that had remained untouched by the violence he unleashed elsewhere. But the recognition he craved came with a heavy price. To secure their support, the local elite forced him to sign treaties that stripped the office of its executive and economic power. Sitting in his new chambers, Andrei was left with a stark realization. He had no heir to carry on his line. His authority was a fraction of his brother's, and he had compromised the dignity of the throne to get there. The absolute power he had sought through the destruction of his homeland was an illusion. In devastated cities like Moscow, surviving rival princes were forced to literally dig through the cold ashes just to begin to rebuild. The damage to the political system was permanent. The title of Grand Prince, once a symbol of unity, had lost the respect of the surrounding principalities. The other princes looked at Andrei and saw a thief who had traded the nation's sovereignty for a title. Andrei finally succeeded in taking the throne, but by turning a foreign empire against his own people, he became the undisputed ruler of a wasteland.